So I'm not sure you're supposed to do anything in particular with your money simply because of what happens with the midterm elections. I mean, we are in an elongated bull market. The markets did well under single party rule in Barack Obama from 09 and 010. We did well with divided government 2010 through 16, and we've done even better in 2016, 2017, 2018. So I don't think that, to me, what's more important is what the Federal Reserve is going to do, what trade policy ultimately looks like. This cycle will end when inflation gets too hot and the Fed tightens policy. I don't think we're going to.
So you don't think politics is going to end? So Mark Grant was on in the last hour. He made an argument that if the Republicans lose the House, that is bad for the markets, that is bad for the economy.
No, I don't think that's the case. I mean, look, like I said before, this recovery started during single-party rule under the Democrats, and it did well during a mixed government.
It came back from 50% down. It got back to where it was before the financial crisis.
Well, I mean, it didn't
make any headway.
But a full recovery and a 200% rally with a divided government, and actually a greater than 200% rally.
That's like Joe, Jeff Immelt brought GE back from 5 to 15. It was down from 60. So that's a great. So he got a 200% increase.
So the point is, look, we had a couple of percent growth, couple of percent inflation for a number of years, no Fed tightening, the markets did just fine.
Yeah, zero on the Fed, $10 trillion in debt added, and we've never got above 2% growth for a year.
So, Joe, what we've done is we've accelerated growth here. You're starting to see the growth moderate. You're seeing leading indicators peak in the United States. So growth slows.
To compare where we are now to single-party rule under Obama with the economy that we have right now is just...
By the way, possibly at the expense of the deficit.
Well, but the deficit, the reason it's so bad is because it got tripled in 8 years, Sorkin. So, I mean, obviously, we don't need it to go up anymore, but now it's spending. It's a spending problem, but at least we're going to have
That's what you're calling it. I think it's a more balanced way to think about that.
No, this isn't a political. I mean, for me, it's like I adhere to the advice. I adhere to the advice of Michael Jordan. They asked him why he doesn't take up liberal causes. He says because Republicans buy sneakers too. Like, so for me, it's not a point of whether you're in favor of the political party. The reality is where are stocks trading, how are company earnings doing, and what's the Fed going to do, and how long can this cycle go on? In my mind, with a benign inflation environment, this cycle goes on, and market leadership, even in the aftermath of Trump's victory, was still the high-flying growth names in the technology sector. So,
Mike Ryan, you believe this?
Well, I tend to agree with Brian here. Look, I don't think that, first of all, do elections matter? Of course they matter. They're not the only thing that matters, but I would also say that midterms tend to matter less. Now, there's a lot at stake in this midterm election because there's a lot of charged rhetoric on both sides. But when you think about it, what we're likely to see is pretty much what's in line with historical norms. The Republicans are likely to lose control of the House, at least that's the way it looks right now, but they're likely to maintain control of the Senate. So what we're likely to get is this ongoing split, this divided government where you basically have two parties basically splitting the legislative branch. Now, historically, when you go back, how have markets performed during those periods? They've done fine. I go back to what Brian said. Look, at the end of the day, I do think there's a couple of things that matter more. I think the earnings cycle is really important. I think what we're going to see in terms of the regulatory front, which I'll disagree with what Mark said earlier. I heard I heard one of your earlier guests. The notion that you're going to see the regulatory momentum suddenly turn back if we see Democratic control. Remember, a lot of these are controlled through agencies. A lot of this comes through the executive branch, not through the legislative branch. So I think the momentum on regulatory relief, it may get slowed a bit. And one place where you could see a slowing, for example, is efforts to repeal or revise Dodd-Frank. That could be an area where you do.
But both of you you're both kind of saying that as long as it's gridlock and none of the positive things that were enacted recently in terms of regulation or getting rid of deregulation and tax reform, as long as that's not changed, we'll be fine. What if the Senate went? What if the Senate and the House went?
So let me go.
You would say that's going to be fine too, because elections don't matter. You're assuming that you're assuming it's an election that doesn't.
Well, you could still argue that the president's going to be in the White House.
True. Well, how do you know he's going to be in the White House if he had the Senate?
That's a different story. But you could live in another grid. That's still a gridlocked world.
So Andrew, let me take this to its logical conclusion. So the notion is, okay, suppose the Senate goes. Remember, there are right now 35 seats up. If Democrats take every single seat...
No, I don't think it's likely. But I'm saying to say that elections don't matter because they're going to turn out with gridlock doesn't mean that they don't matter.
But Joe, even if they took every single seat, you said, well, what about they have an impeachment removed from office?
Well, you need two-thirds.
You'd still need to get another 12 to 14...
For two-thirds.
Republican senators to go along. So it's unlikely. And the other issue, too, is if you think about what's likely to happen in terms of a tax reform bill that was passed, even if the House and the Senate were to vote it, I suspect what you'll see is the president would veto any movement towards rolling back tax reform.